For thousands of years, humans have sung together, creating harmony, beauty, community, and joy. Here on How Can I Keep From Singing, we talk about this ancient art form, exploring the power, the rationale, and some of the how-to. I'm your host, Stuart Stotts, coming to you from rural Wisconsin. My guest today is Sandra Kerr. Sandra Kerr has had a long and distinguished career in folk music. Trained by MacColl and Seeger in the Controversial Critics Group, she's also co-writer of the music for the much-loved cult TV series Bagpuss. She's a multi-instrumentalist, choir director, longtime member of Sisters Unlimited, and a much-respected lecturer and tutor on the Newcastle degree course in folk and traditional music. She brings people together to sing in harmony, and she believes deeply that group singing is a magical activity which binds people together and helps us to understand each other and the world we live in. She comes to us from Northumberland in England. Sandra, welcome to How Can I Keep From Singing?
I'm delighted to be here, Stuart.
Let's start at the beginning. Tell me about a little bit of how you were raised and how that impacted what you do now.
Oh, my goodness. Very relevant. My family were hugely musical, though totally untutored. They all sang to pull down the stars and loved to harmonize. Even to this day, I would go into harmonizing mode, whether I'm asked to or not. But it comes so automatically to me because I heard that so much when I was a child. There was always music in the house, and though we were quite a poor family, we always had a piano.
Was it a large family?
No, just me and my brother, but my mother's family. There were 11 of them, and 7 in my father's family. And again, all loved music, all loved to sing and play and dance. So music was a crucial part of my life. And then at school, I was hugely fortunate because we had such encouragement to make music and to make music informally, just as well as formal music lessons as part of the curriculum. So, for instance, I had a girls' skiffle group when I was 15. I don't think any of the instruments we played had the right number of strings or was possibly strung in the right way. But it was immensely important because we were doing it ourselves instead of being consumers of a music industry. And that was very important to me then, important to me now.
The material that you sang when you were young with your family, folk music, pop music of the time, a whole mix, what did you sing?
Well, exactly what you said. I mean, there was some folk music. I won't pretend that I was, that I learned every folk song I ever knew at my mother's knee. I didn't, but there were folk songs sung. More blues and jazz, it has to be said, and some country stuff. I mean, the first record I remember having was Tennessee Ernie Ford singing 16 Tons. Oh, I loved that record, and I must have worn all kinds of holes in it. I just loved it. But as you say, lots of popular music from way back, from before the war, and all that 1940s stuff, which was so influenced by jazz and blues and so on, which I always loved. I found it so musical and so easy to harmonize to.
So you're sitting with your family, some group of aunts, uncles, nieces, cousins, and you're singing together. Tell me just a little bit about what that looked like.
It looked very crowded because we all lived in rather small houses. So at my maternal grandmother's house, for instance, which was the party house, there was something going on there every Saturday night, and the carpet would be rolled up and the floor would be bare so we could dance and sing. So it looked very crowded, Stuart. But that was nice too. We were all kind of hugger-mugger, and that was fun. fine. And of course, when you're close physically, singing in harmony is just wonderful. You get that wonderful beating of tune against harmony, and it feels really good.
Tell me a little more about the idea of harmony. It's a recurring theme in my conversations with people, just the power of singing a third above, a fifth above, and how that feels to do that. In a sense, often greater strength internally than singing the melody.
Yes, it's very interesting that, isn't it? When music was monodic, when it was just tune in our ancient history, we had the modes, of course. We had scales, which were very, very different from each other and which represented, if you like, an emotional content within that scale. You know all this stuff, I'm sure. Although I'm conversant with the modes and I sing modal ballad tunes, of course, that's the stuff of our folk music. I can't imagine what a world was like that only had melody lines, no matter how intricate and layered with emotion, which is what the modal scales did for us. Can't imagine what that was like. Whether some of us hear harmony through some kind of vibrations around us, through what is resonating in the space that we're inhabiting. Whether that happens or some of us have, I don't know, forgive me for saying, I think this is rubbish actually, but talking about genetic kind of predisposition to sing harmony. I'll answer my own point really. I mean, I think if you grow up with harmony, you're bound to appreciate it and perhaps be able to access it a lot quicker. You hear tunes differently. You know, they suggest other intervals to you. So yes, it's all very interesting how that came about and how attractive it is and who can do it and who can't. I mean, I live with a partner who absolutely loves music. He's in a male voice choir, but he couldn't sing you a harmony that wasn't written down for him to save his life. So how come I can, he can't? Well, he didn't grow up with music, and I did.
And let me just build on that a little bit. So you have the modes, the Dorian and Phrygian, Mixolydian, and so on, that were early carriers of musical feeling and expression. What's your conjecture, and I know it's only conjecture, about how harmony began to develop out of that?
Now, I'm really shaky on this, Stuart, I have to say, because strictly speaking, I don't know. I mean, in a sense, I think that's a question for a classical musician to answer, because it clearly doesn't happen until we have instruments on which it's possible to make harmony. I wonder if this ability to both hear harmony and reproduce it is very ancient indeed, because, you know, we listen to natural sounds and they can harmonize, not in the way we would recognize now, but there is harmony out there in the natural world. So one does wonder if that was its absolute beginning. But my guess is that, you know, once you get an instrument that's got two strings, you're going to get harmony. Once you get two drums that beat a different sound, you're going to get harmony. Or that may just be a couple of tree trunks, who knows? But you're going to get that very, very quickly by the very nature of the artifacts themselves.
You're listening to How Can I Keep From Singing? My name is Stuart Stotts, and my guest today is Sandra Kerr. So you were raised in a very rich musical atmosphere, between singing at school, being encouraged to do that, and your family. How did that then progress into a career?
I was immensely fortunate. That's how it progressed. I was taken by some friends to a folk club, which was called the Singers Club, which was run by MacColl and Seeger. And Stuart, I was completely blown away I immediately felt this was my music. And funnily enough, my father, who was the only not very musical one amongst us, did say to me when he heard me starting to learn folk songs, he did say, "You have found your music." I just so related to the kinds of melodies, the stories they were telling, the accompaniments. I mean, I remember to this day, Peggy played a guitar accompaniment to a transportation song about a convict being transported from England to Australia. It's called Van Diemen's Land, the song. And I can remember how she played to this day because the tune starts in the major and then goes into the minor. And it was so extraordinary. Tunes I knew didn't do that stuff. It was just so exciting. And I think I loved the sense of history. The other ingredient was I loved the political content of the songs, the social consciousness of the songs and the song makers. I started to learn folk songs. I went to the Singers Club frequently. They used to have this thing in the middle of the evening. They would have singers from the floor. So anybody who wanted to get up and do a song, like open mic these days, we would call it, except there were no mics. So I got up and sang. And Ewan and Peggy were hugely encouraging, The first thing I ever sang was Scarborough Fair. Not the Simon and Garfunkel one, but the one that it's based on, the traditional English version, which it's based on. And anyway, I'd only been going there a few months, and they then asked if I would like to go and live with them and help with their children while they were away on tour as a kind of au pair, but also in return, I would have one-on-one lessons with both of them. So I had my own private university consisting of a ménage à trois, but not in the way that is usually used, I hasten to add.
What an amazing opportunity to get to work closely with these two giants of folk music.
Wasn't I just lucky?
You were in the right place at the right time, no question. But you obviously had the skill and orientation as well. In this early time of learning folk music for yourself, interestingly enough, not so much as a child, but more a little bit older, what was the place of group singing in this milieu of folk songs?
The folk clubs were really the place where people went, not just to hear songs, but to sing. Chorus songs were highly prized. People loved joining in choruses, and there was always harmony in there as well. And of course, we began to hear harmony singing with Ewan and Peggy because Peggy, was supreme kind of a singer who could hear harmony, interesting harmony, clever and beautiful harmony. So yes, that was milieu, but it was very free and it was very impromptu, and it obviously depended on the repertoire that the performers sang and the people who were in the audience. I mean, what's really interesting is the way that the community choir movement has developed in the last 20 years or so. That has been absolutely crucial to both people singing and not being receivers, but being creative, and also to the cause, if you like, of harmony singing. But that was more recent. But in those days, I think what I've described to you is fairly accurate. It was the folk clubs where you went for a good sing as well as a good listen.
So how did you move from, you've been a performer and a writer, but also intimately involved with the idea of choral singing as a director and so on. Talk a little bit about that, the growth from being a performer and on stage, and I'm sure encouraging people to sing along at certain points, to someone who's also deeply grounded in the idea of how do we get people to sing together, not necessarily in a performance setting.
Well, firstly, I have to say that the grounding in understanding what makes a good singer, what makes a good performer, that I had in the critics group and with Ewan and Peggy before the critics group. The critics group was a study group that Ewan and Peggy started in 1962 or 3, I can't quite remember. But I learned so much from both of them in terms of the content of songs, the style of singing them, vocal technique, relaxation, all these things, breath control, from both of them, I have to say. And they were both extremely good teachers. I mean, they were very good. And you'll know yourself what's really important is not just, the physical thing of being with other people. It's having the right leader who can guide you, cajole you, bully you. No, not bully you, I lie about that, but certainly can guide and cajole you into getting it right, because there's something so exciting about that. So yes, I had a lot of very good tutoring from the two of them. I very quickly became a full-time performer. I had been teaching. I'd gone to college and done a degree and started teaching, but it was fighting with my time that I deeply wanted to use performing. So my partner, or my husband at the time, John Faulkner, and I gave up our jobs, and we've been performers ever since then. Now, as far as leading choirs, very soon within the folk movement, folk revival, people wanted something a bit more formalized as far as learning both folk song and singing together techniques. And so at festivals and various other places, they began to develop workshops specifically for people to come and learn stuff and be proactive rather than receiving. That began to happen. I think obviously have to nod in the direction of groups like the Copper family and the Waterson family and so on, who were also singing in harmony, and people were getting to hear that too. Let me see. I think the women's movement here was instrumental in giving me a space through which I could develop both my passion for songs which actually said something important and unifying and so on, or historically enlightening or whatever. The women's movement gave me that space to explore that kind of song, and also to have women gather together and want to sing, because singing together was immensely important in that movement, whether it was part of the peace movement or it was, Reclaim the Night movement, or, all those elements that were within the women's movement generally. So women coming together during the 70s and 80s, 90s even. I was still doing workshops, women's workshops and harmony workshops and songwriting workshops. Well, I still do them. Then in 1989, I moved up to the Northeast. There was already a folk choir in Newcastle upon Tyne, which is the nearest city and the biggest city in the Northeast. There was folk choir there. The person who'd started that was leaving, and he asked me if I'd take it over. And with great trepidation, because I had never thought of myself as a choir leader, just a person who did harmony workshops, I took it on, and I cut my teeth on the Caedmon choir. I did that for 6 or 7 years. And then I decided I wanted a women's choir again, or rather, I just wanted to work with women. So I had a wonderful time recruiting a choir of women in Northumberland who would sing a mixture of Northumbrian traditional songs, contemporary songs on women's issues, and so on. I still have that choir. We're having our 30th anniversary in 2 weeks' time. Doesn't seem possible.
Congratulations. That's an amazing accomplishment to have that sort of continuity and build that kind of community.
Oh, it is a community too, Stuart. That's a good word for it. It's not just about singing together that's important. It is that building of a community, that social glue that you set up when you sing with people, especially over a period of time. Although it can happen if you just work with people for a weekend or a day, they feel bonded by what you've done. Oh, and then the next thing was the starting of the folk degree course at Newcastle University. I was the main song tutor there for 17 years, and I still do some lecturing there. The vocal group, as we called it, was wonderful. Working with young voices, this sounds ageist, I don't mean it to be, but young voices that were hugely skilled, but also really in tune with traditional song and contemporary song in a folk style, was just a joy. And they're still going today. That's still an intrinsic part of the folk degree course. Vocal group is there. We took a decision. Every student should learn to sing, whether they considered themselves a singer or not. We thought it was good for their musicianship. Again, good for esprit de corps and all that.
You're listening to How Can I Keep From Singing? My name is Stuart Stotts, and my guest today is Sandra Kerr.
What an amazing run of musical growth and exploration and this sense of community. Often people will talk about music is not the excuse for community, but it certainly is a result. When you are standing in a room with people who are going to be singers or who maybe you've worked with in a choir, what are some of the things that are going through your mind?
Several things. First of all, for my women's choir, for instance, I arrange all the music. What I'm hoping when I first introduce a piece to them that I've arranged is that it's going to sound as good in the world as it did in my head. Yes. And that's very exciting. I mean, in fact, it's very moving to have something that's been a series of dots on a bit of paper come alive in people's voices. It's just extraordinary. So I'm hoping for that. Do you know, life is so hard for women these days. I'm not saying it isn't for blokes too, but I just feel certainly women, older women, like the women in my choir, who have so much responsibility and take such a lioness's share of things like childcare and care of older parents and each other. They're often quite tired when they come. So what I'm hoping when I go in and wave my arms about in front of them and present them with pieces to sing is that, and it always does, I'm always hoping that it will give them some life back, some energy back, and often some hope back too, because you can imagine working with groups for a long time. You go through an awful lot together. We've seen a lot of happiness, but also a lot of tragedy. Curiously, my choir have said to me over the years, they've seen me arrive exhausted and looking like you're not going to be able to wave your arms about for very long, missus. And by the end of the session, I'm full of glee and energy, totally energized.
One of the magical things which you mentioned in the introduction that I read is just this amazing, and I believe magical power of people to gain energy from singing together, especially in those times when it just fills the room and everybody looks around and knows that that's what just happened.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Stuart. It is magic. It is a kind of magic, I'm convinced, because it appears to come from nowhere. You've got an empty space, you fill it with this marvelous, juicy, multicolored mixture of sound, and you feel better. It's balm for the soul, definitely.
If you were going to a song singing circle, let's just say maybe people that you didn't know or a new situation, what are 3 or so songs that you might have in your pocket that you could just pull out and say, this is a great song for people to sing when they're at the beginning of this journey?
Oh, that's so nice. Well, one that I use exactly in that way is a song called By Broom Besoms. I have to explain that. By broom besoms? Do you know what a besom is? It's like a garden broom, like witches' brooms with twigs sticking out. We have a song up here in the Northeast, which is developed from a street cry. It's hugely accessible, it's fun, it's local. In fact, I'm going up to Aberdeen in November and I'm going to be teaching concertina. They want to learn how to accompany songs, so that I'm going to use that song because the arpeggios are built into the tune, and with the English concertina, which is what I play, arpeggios are so easy. They fall under the fingers. So that is one, definitely. This is another. My goodness. I was at a festival at the weekend and a man came up to me and said, "You look just like Sandra Kerr." And I said, "Well, I used to be Sandra Kerr, that's true." And he said, years ago, he said, you did a harmony workshop with us up in Allendale, which is right up in the wilds of Northumberland. He said, and you sang a song called When You Were Born, You Cried. Oh, let me just sing a tiny bit. So it's a 4-line chorus and I have no voice, but never mind. When you were born, you cried, and the world rejoiced. Live your life so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice. But it's a 4-line. When you were born, you cried, and the world rejoiced. Live your life so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice. Anyway, he said, you taught that song. He said, first of all, one woman started crying because she said, why have I had to wait all my life to hear a song like that? Secondly, he then said he sang it to his mother as she died. He said she was so ready to go, and he'd been singing to her quite a lot while she was in her final days and hours, and he sang that to her. And it's a song that works. It's the most beautiful round. If you want a recording of it, listen to the Melrose Quartet. They've recorded it, and it's very beautiful. I would use that because it really, really touches people in very different ways, very different ways. What else might I choose? Oh, I think I'd choose something that's got a bit of, nice offbeat kind of rhythm to it. There's a great song that Holly Near wrote. She wrote a wonderful song called Fired Up, which goes, fired up, ain't gonna take it no more. Fired up, ain't gonna take it no more. You say cool down, we say stand down. You're breaking your mother's heart. Shame, shame. Again, very easy to get into. Got a lovely kind of driving beat to it, and the harmonies are dead easy.
A great song for our time. A good place to end this, although I know we could keep talking for quite a while. Sandra, I just want to thank you so much for talking with me, and I'll put some notes with some resources or connections to things that you've been talking about for listeners. So say hello to England, and thank you very much for talking with me.
You're very welcome. It's been fun.
Listening to How Can I Keep From Singing, a production of Common Arts. My name is Stuart Stotts, and my guest today was Sandra Kerr.